product provided by Nintendo. Splatoon 2 is the newest game from Nintendo to come to its hybrid console, and it leaves a lot of fans wondering, is this a real sequel to Splatoon, or is it just a bunch of DLC content packaged to look like a sequel? Let's super jump in and find out. Splatoon 2 takes place 2 years after the events of the original Splatoon. A lot has happened in those 2 years. Callie has gone missing and the Octarians have once again stolen the Great Zapfish. To help bring back order to Inkopolis and find out what happened to Callie, her cousin Marie recruits a new agent member, you, the new Agent 4. Traverse through the new Octo Valley campaign as you go from level to level collecting mini Zapfish until you reach the final boss for each world. As for controller options, you're able to play the game with Joy-Cons separately, Joy-Cons on the grip, and with the Pro Controller. And personally, because a lot of people ask me which one was my favorite, I go with the Pro Controller, though all three are viable options. The overall setup for the single player is still very similar to the original Splatoon. It still feels partially like a story mode, but also partially like a tutorial or a good training system to get you familiar with all the mechanics and the weapons in Splatoon 2. Throughout the campaign, Sheldon will give you new weapons and most of the time will force you to use a specific weapon for the first playthrough of a mission. As useful as this does act as a tutorial mode, it does get a little bit annoying, specifically if you cater or use a specific type of weapon all the time, and you want to play or use that weapon and you're being forced to use all these other weapons instead, at least for the first time you're playing through the story mode. Luckily, you can replay levels with different weapons after you beat them at least once with the dedicated weapon. Completionists may want to do this specifically to go after all the bonus items and scrolls hidden within the level, just like the original Splatoon. One cool touch is that the level does change a bit to cater the weapon you use. For example, a level that focuses on a charger weapon may add platforms to certain faraway objects to accommodate a playthrough with something like the Splat Dualies. There's actually a progression system for the weapons too. Using the power eggs and the new Sardinium items that are hidden just like the second scrolls, you can upgrade your single player weapons and other features like your ink tank capacity. The single player campaign does start off a bit simple and straightforward in terms of level design, so veteran players might be turned off by that, but it does start to pick up at least after the first boss fight. Once you're in the second world and onward, the design starts to pick up into more complex platforming that should seem fresh to not only new players of course, but also veteran inklings from the original game as well. Jumping through calamari rings, grinding on rails, and platforming from rail to rail is the Sonic Cross Splatoon level design I never knew I wanted, but now I do. If anything, I think the biggest takeaway or the biggest positive with the single player campaign are the very great boss battles. They're just as funny and charming as the original Splatoon, with memorable bosses on the level of some 3D Mario platformers. A giant evil octopus on a unicycle can really only be done in the world of Splatoon. The new additions to level design, boss fights, and the weapon progression is a great addition to this 5 to 6.5 hour campaign. The writing makes it even better with great dialogue between characters like Marie, who proves once again pineapple doesn't go on pizza, and how Sheldon exclaims that the slusher is really just a bucket. Nintendo Treehouse writing staff, I love you guys so much. With that said though, just like the original game, I don't think its campaign can fully sell the price tag of Splatoon 2, though it definitely does feel much more complete of a campaign than the original game. Luckily, there is more to the game than just the story mode. The classic multiplayer that you know and love from the original Splatoon is back in Splatoon 2 with new items, new fashion, new hair design, new customization features. It's all a lot of fun. You can still customize your Inkling skin tone and eye color like the original game, but now you can also change up their bottoms as well as the hairstyle options. Gear is back, and just like the first game, they add abilities that will aid you in battle. Use the money that you earn from playing online to purchase new gear, everything from headwear, shirts, and shoes. One welcome change to when you're handling conversations with vendors that sell you things is being able to fast forward through their conversations, because let me tell you, after turning on the original Splatoon to capture footage for this review, I had to go through a solid 6-minute conversation with Sheldon about all the weapons that came out in the last few months since I stopped playing Splatoon. Some familiar weapons have also gotten brand new features. Chargers can now hold their charge when you switch into squid form, and rollers can swing vertically, not just horizontally. So not only are there new weapons like the Splat Dualies that let you dodge roll, but also some of the older weapons are getting new functionality too. There's new sub-weapons and special weapons as well. In fact, all the special weapons are brand new special weapons. As for the sub-weapons, you'll see familiar ones like the balloons and the ink bombs, but there's also new additions like the auto bomb that follows the nearest enemy before exploding. Now let's jump into the online multiplayer. When you jump into the online lobby, you'll be greeted with the familiar regular battle, friends, and private battle options from the original game. Regular battles have you play the classic Turf War game mode against other players online, where your goal is to cover as much of the map as possible with your team's colored ink. At launch, there's a total of 8 maps to play on, with a few of them being from the original game, though with some slight modifications that change up their level structure and feel. The Friends mode lets you join up with other friends online if they're in the middle of a Turf War match. The Private Battle mode lets you create lobbies or join your friends' lobbies where you control the map, game mode, and general settings for the match. For the more competitive inklings out there, there is the Ranked Match mode, which is unlocked when you reach level 10, and it gives you a grade based on the amount of matches you win, and it puts you against other players in a similar ranking. However, there's a new battle mode added to this called League Battles. Once you reach a ranking of -B, you can enter league battles and form teams with your friends to play against other teams online. Basically an organized team battle system, much more in line with the whole esports vision that Nintendo seems to have for Splatoon 2. The rotation system from the original game is back as well, and that really is a hit or miss varying on the player. I personally never minded not being able to choose the map I randomly matchmade on, so long as I was able to play the game mode I wanted to, and private battles after all still give you the option to customize your own game to your liking. Though for the people that just want to play online Rainmaker, Splat Zones, or Tower Control, those are in rotation in ranked battles, and so you can't always choose the game mode you want, at least when you're playing randoms online. That's definitely a bummer still for those that want to play other game modes besides Surf Wars. Moving on from those game modes though, is a brand new game mode called Salmon Run that's essentially the survival mode in Splatoon 2. It's a lot of fun. You can play with 1 to 4 players and you go to collect power eggs from enemies invading a small island. There's only one map in this game mode, but it never completely is static where it just doesn't change at all. During waves of enemies, the tide can completely change, cutting off certain parts of the island that forces you to turn into a human form and walk rather than use the squid form. The changing tide definitely adds more challenge to this game mode, and enemies in this game mode also come in all different shapes and sizes, some of which require you to use a specific tactic in order to take them out. It's all a lot of fun, with the only real problem I have with it being that I can't play it when I want to. For some reason, Nintendo has also put this behind a rotation, meaning that you can only play online Salmon Run when Nintendo says it's open. Yes, you can technically play whenever if you have a friend locally around with a Switch and a copy of Splatoon 2, but if you don't, you can pretty much only play when Nintendo says you can, and it's incredibly stupid. And since we've come to the topic of local multiplayer, let's talk about local multiplayer. I was only able to test out local wireless multiplayer while I was at D23 this past weekend, and it was surprisingly pretty stable, even with the large amount of people around me with wireless devices. In local multiplayer mode, you can pretty much play any of the multiplayer game modes that you want with friends, though it's all wireless ad hoc. There actually isn't any on one system local multiplayer mode at all. It's a big downgrade from the original Splatoon on the Wii U. Oh yeah, you can even play Salmon Run on here, but guess what? Even though you can play the online Salmon Run by yourself, you can't play the local multiplayer one by yourself. Once again, just some really bizarre choices on Nintendo's part. Why can't I play this game in single player mode if I can play it in single player mode in technically the online mode? What's the point behind that? Now at the moment I don't have access to it, but Nintendo will be releasing the Nintendo Switch Online Lounge application for mobile devices that'll give players more functionality when playing online. From the application, people will be able to set up lobbies, communicate with their friends through voice and text, and even check up on your battle stats when you're not on the Switch itself. Though I don't have access to the application at the moment, I'll try to do a full video impressions of it once it launches with the retail version of Splatoon. Now even though Inkopolis has had its great Zapfish stolen, the city itself has actually gotten quite the upgrade in this game. The city square is more compact now, but it also feels more populated with Inklings playing Splatoon's version of DDR, hanging out at the local restaurant, or just chilling while waiting for the next turf war. Although the Switch doesn't have Miiverse options, you can still create drawings from the lobby and have them appear in other Splatoon players' lobbies online. There's even Amiibo support like the original game. You can scan in the original boy Inkling or girl Inkling from the original game and it'll give you some cool gear, let you save a specific setup of weaponry to the Amiibo, and even let you take pictures with your Amiibo friends in different poses. For those of you that played the original Splatoon, you'll see plenty of familiar and even new shop owners too. Both new and old characters look beautifully animated as compared to the original Splatoon counterparts, looking fresher than ever with more lively looking expressions and quite literally sharper looking clothes. You see, Splatoon 2 runs at an adaptive resolution where it can run somewhere between the lines of 720p and 1080p when docked. Even when you're playing in portable mode at a lower resolution, the game still looks very sharp on the Switch display. As for the gameplay, it runs at a solid 60 frames per second with not a single drop in sight during gameplay, though the frame rate does drop down to 30 FPS when you're in the lobby of Inkopolis, just because it does force a 1080p output. At first glance, Splatoon 2 doesn't look like a major visual upgrade, but after playing it for a while, you really do start to notice, especially if you go back and try to capture footage of the original game, you'll definitely notice how much of a visual upgrade this sequel is. Character models in the sequel just look more vibrant in color, ink sparkles with a glittery shine to it, the splattered ink has more 3D depth to it, and animations are vastly improved in the NPCs. Just comparing the game's intro from the original game to the sequel, you'll definitely see an improvement. The new tracks in Splatoon 2 are also just as catchy as the first game. The new idol group, called Off the Hook, brings some catchy new jams to the series with even more lovable characters. The new incoming track gets you right in the mood for a turf war, while the victory song, though it's only really about 30 seconds in a long loop, is one of the catchiest tunes I've heard in recent time. I've quite literally listened to it on loop while writing this review. Best of all is a new vocal track called Color Pulse, and it's a gem of a song that's on the level of the original Ink Me Up song from Callie and Marie in the first Splatoon. Splatoon 2 is definitely a worthy sequel to the original game, though it still has some room for improvement. Nintendo has gone and improved the formula of the original game in many forms and aspects. I love the new level design and the bosses in the single player campaign. The upgraded visuals and the fresh new music definitely live up to the standards of the original Splatoon. The current new maps, weapons, and abilities are all fun, and they're sure to only get better with the upcoming free updates just like the original game. Despite all those improvements though, Nintendo still could be doing better about letting players choose the game modes they want to play when they want to play. While I personally don't mind it for ranked matches since you still can play those game modes outside of the online matchmaking, I think not being able to play Salmon Run unless Nintendo says I can, or if another Switch owner is around me with a copy of the game, is really dumb. It's a brand new game mode and I can't even play it when I want to. The local multiplayer also seems like a downgrade since the Wii U version at least allowed some sort of local multiplayer on it. I'm really surprised that the sequel is missing a one system only local multiplayer mode, even if it would just be a dock version only mode. So is Splatoon 2 worth picking up? I think so. It's fun and improves upon the original in a lot of ways that makes it a blast to play. Since getting it, I haven't been able to put it down, and a lot of people on my friends list like to remind me because they keep tweeting me, how the hell are you playing Splatoon 2 early? With that said though, the sequel still has room for improvement in both the online and the local multiplayer, and that's saying with this being one of the most online focused games from Nintendo in recent years. But that does it for my review of Splatoon 2. If you have a question that I may have missed in this review, feel free to ask it in the comment section down below. I'll do my best to answer it, but chances are I probably didn't answer it because I'm under embargo still about a certain feature, so I'll do my best. If I can answer it, I'll answer it, and if I can't, then sorry. Regardless, thank you all once again for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop it a like, subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next one. I said I wouldn't do that again.